The convention centre was an extraordinary one because how the hell are we going to do this? Hi, my name is Gemma Jackson and I'm a production designer of Death by Lightning. We did a lot of research, mostly I guess there's a little bit of photographic, not much, a lot of paintings, a lot of reading. When you do research for a job like that, you have to do a load of stuff and then you kind of have to throw away the book and create your own world. And I think that's what we had to do in that instance. It's happened to me on other jobs, and I think sometimes if you get too hooked up on research, once you've done overall what people were wearing, how people were driving, the period-wise, you know what's going on. And we looked at his house, and there's a lot of information about that, where his wife went on living for many years to come, and now it's a rather cheesy museum, which is not much help anymore. But there was a lot of information there about how they lived, etc. And then again, we kind of made it our own, and we thought, well, we're talking 1820s in Ohio and simple stuff. And we created our own version of the farm. And because now it's sort of red, I don't think it was red, who knows? We did our own, and we expect you to go along with it. It was a very tall order, trying to make Budapest into 1820s Washington, New York. It was very hard, but you've got the most extraordinary collection of locations there, a lot of very willing people who want to make it work. And of course, we built the most crucial things like the farm or the White House, Conkling's apartment, a rectangular room. It's not much fun, but you put some kind of elegant columns in there and you kind of zhuzh it around a bit, get a fabulous marble fireplace, and it's amazing what you can do. And I think the great thing about it was that it's quite cost effective there, and you've got the whole of Europe on your doorstep. You see, being British, we're now up shit creek because we have a problem going in and out of Europe to buy stuff. But if you're in Europe, we had some amazing trips to France and the countryside in France, and the girls went to Italy. It's a really good place to be. You're right in the heart of Europe, and where you can bring stuff in and, beautiful marble fireplaces or whatever you can get, you've got a much better chance. And we got a lot of stuff from markets around Paris and stuff. We got some really, really excellent stuff. And I think that was one of the great bonuses of being there. And then you've got all these apartments, a lot of which are empty, which, although they're not strictly speaking how people lived in New York or Washington or whatever, they allow you, as I said about like Conkling with the columns, they just give you these wonderful rectangular spaces within which you can then, it's almost like blank sheets of paper, and you've been given the four walls, and then you can just really go to town and create your own ideas. Things like the convention centre or whatever we had to build, and we would have built that wherever we'd gone. Each place had its own demands. The convention centre was an extraordinary one because how the hell are we going to do this? But when we actually broke it down to the space and what was necessary in there, umpteen amounts of flags and all the rest of it. So basically we built probably the first third to a half of what you see. And then we actually had cutouts of congressmen in the audience going back. And then the wonderful visual effects guy, then he filled it all in. He's a really creative guy, and he loves working with us quite closely. So that was really, really fantastic. But by the same token, the actual structure of it wasn't that complex, but just making it believable as you, the audience, go in behind him into that space. I think it's quite a big wow factor myself. And I was really delighted by the way it sort of turned out. The White House is always a big one because obviously all you guys have very clear ideas. And there's not a designer I know in America who hasn't built a version of the White House. And so we did our version. I think it holds its own and is incredibly sort of beautiful architecture. I mean, it's got that gorgeous long central hallway. Whichever way you do it, that's what you've got. I think after all the other sets, which were sort of much more farmhousey and city and this and that and the other, I think you did get a sense of grandeur with the White House. So I was proud of that. The farm we built, we had to plant all the crops. Actually, in the end, the cornfield didn't get used, but initially it was going to be used for something very specific. And we did a whole kitchen garden there and all sorts. So we did the exterior on location, and then we built the interior. And there's an absolutely superb scenic artist over there. And he did this exquisite backing of it all the way around. And you never, ever would sort of never question that you weren't inside the farmhouse. And it was beautiful work. So there's some very talented people there. So that makes it all quite a joy to be there. The first prison you go to, when he's sort of in that muddy, where we did it was incredibly medieval, a sort of prison museum somewhere in the depths of the country. Don't ask me where. We went and it is medieval, and what we did there was pretty medieval. And I don't think probably he would have been kept quite in those awful, when he's sort of crawled in the corner with rats around. I don't know. That seemed to be slightly sensational. Yeah. But that's about the only thing, really. I think also the second prison was in a way more important because it was more serious, because he really had committed this crime, a serious murder, and there was an awful lot of stuff that had to be got through in there, which when he was in the other one, he was just some sort of thief, vagabond kind of character who nobody really knew who he was. It was a lovely opening, actually, I thought. The whole thing, the way it's interesting when you see something finally after you've shot it sort of last year and you've sort of I loved the way it opened. I thought it was great. The White House, for example, was a sort of 15-20 week build, paper, huge dress. I mean, it was massive, very high ceilings, beautiful plaster work and all the rest of it. It's a big job, and then it has to be dressed and prepared. There's a very careful scheduling has to go on with a great guy called Ollie Robinson. He did all that. We'd all work together very closely, which is normal procedure. Everything has a time and a place, and we had a good long, Bernie Caulfield, the producer, she's very good on not rushing things through. So we had a good period of pre-production. Don't ask me how long it happened, I can't remember, but it was good. So it meant that we were kind of quite prepared. And so then when we actually started shooting, we weren't suddenly in a terrible tiswas. We're mostly, there's always that pressure of getting things done, but it was a fairly measured pressure, if you see what I mean.